Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So many of you have asked me to go over this disaster that was the World Scout Jamboree. What happened and how could it ever turn into such a disaster for 43,000 scouts from around the world? And if you are connected somehow to one of these scouts and you're wondering, what the heck happened? I thought Korea was all advanced and I thought Korea was all this, and it is, but there is another part of this situation that seems like it's just history repeating itself. So we are going to break it down and we're gonna go over why this turned into such a Jambo dump.
They didn't have tents. They didn't have bedding, they didn't have any equipment to cook food, store food, they didn't have food.
So I wasn't familiar. I'm sure many of you aren't familiar unless you were like a Girl Scout or a Boy Scout, what the Jamboree is. On the surface, it looks like it's just a big camping trip. So no camping trip should ever require that the president of a country save it. I mean, how many things have to go wrong in order for a president to intervene to take care of a camping trip that has gone wrong? On the other hand, that's how I think the organizers, or probably the people who were preparing this, just saw it as like a camping trip. But in reality, you were responsible for creating a temporary mini city for 43,000 people in the middle of nowhere, just a plot of land with absolutely no infrastructure, not even plumbing for sewage, which we'll get into, and leaving the kids to the elements and showing that, yeah, you're just willing to sacrifice the kids. So 158 countries participated apparently, but then there were some countries, I think, that they dropped out and they didn't even know. So that when they had planned to put a contingent in emergency housing because it got so hot and they had to cancel this jamboree, they were like, where are they? They were like, yeah, they never showed up. This was just disjointed and a mess from all over the place. If you just want to see, like, what are some of the conditions that they had to go through? Heat waves, bugs, dirty toilets, inadequate food and lack of services, even like getting rotten eggs. Definitely the toilet situation, not enough facilities, and definitely not being cleaned enough. And all of this had been warned of, analyzed, and studied beforehand. So you can't say like, oh, well, we didn't know. Or, oh, it's just, well, a typhoon just came in. A typhoon barely came in. I mean, it was good that they evacuated, but they knew that that was a risk. And so why did they choose that spot to begin with? Again, this all turns into a political situation where, like, these kids, this event was used for a political cartel to enrich themselves. And now that it did not go well, they're pointing the fingers at each other. Now, first of all, okay, World Scout Jamboree, I only see like Girl Scouts selling diabetic cookies that are delicious, but there's a little bit of like a patchy road to diabetes. But I think when you get to, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're one of these scouts, when you get to the end of your scouting experience, this jamboree is very important, because this jamboree are for kids from 14 to 17. So to me, it sounds like this kind of caps off. This is your last, like your prom or your graduation, or like the best big event that ends your childhood experience of the jamboree. So this is a very important thing, and it only comes, I believe, once every 2 years. It doesn't happen like every single year. So at this jamboree, the scouts, I guess they swap badges and they do activities, and I guess it's like the most amazing event is to meet other people from around the world. Korea did host it in 1991 on like a third of the budget, and it was considered successful. This budget was 100 million won, so depending on the exchange rates, like 80 to 100 million dollars. The previous Scout Jamboree was in 2019, and that was in West Virginia. That was considered successful. And the next Jamboree will be in Poland in 2027. So it sounds like it's every 4 years. So it's like the Olympics. It's a big thing. Now, in every kind of world event, sporting event, I think we all need to come to the shared understanding, and now in order to monitor and make sure our tax dollars are going well, is to wake up to the fact that no matter what country you're in, these world big events are used by a political cartel in order to get taxpayer funds and dole it out, and have some of it siphon off through the contracts to build things or whatnot, or political appointments, power. It's used for more than just a camping trip. It's used for more than just watching like athletes at the Olympics play the sports. There's a whole other machinery behind it that even affects how it gets to a particular country. I would posit that most likely there was a lot of behind the scenes maneuvering by then UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Yes, he's South Korean, and he was a Secretary General of the UN. He was a leading campaign figure to get the World Scout Jamboree to South Korea. This was done in 2017, so it was done under the liberal administration of Moon Jae-in. Why is the writing on the wall so clear that a lot of this situation unfolded this way because political concerns were put first rather than the kids? Because you can see like why were these decisions being made recklessly but resolutely with a plan? But the plan was to satisfy a political base, political region, and a certain cartel of politicians. Cartels of politicians are on both sides. And so the choice for the site was Saemangeum. Saemangeum is a redevelopment area in the liberal side of Korea. And so whenever one party is in power, they try to bring development projects to the area where their voters are. It replenishes, I guess, the political war chests, and then also provides jobs, and it satisfies the companies within that region. And so Saemangeum is kind of like one of these like build it and they will come like kind of dream situations, a multi-year long project, very complex, and at the core of it was reclaiming sea water to use it for other purposes, and also to build a dam. So you always have some sort of big reason for the public benefit that you put out there, but the budgets are just like, oh, what that? $100 million for a camping trip? Are you serious? For 43,000 people, that is a lot of people, but I didn't do the math. Give me a second.
A few moments later.
That is $2,325 per scout that came from Korean taxpayers to put on this camping trip. So 1 week of a camping trip for $2,325, and that does not include, I bet, the amount that the scouts actually have to pay themselves. I bet they have to pay a lot of money. $2,325 divided by 7, that is $332 a day. Since when did camping cost you $332 a day to sleep on the dirt outside? $332? So yes, you have to follow the money in terms of like, whose fault was it? When they're finger pointing and stuff and they're like, nitpicking over like rotten eggs and toilet paper and stuff like that, which is important. But the bigger picture, what's the bigger picture? $100 million, yes, was for the Jamboree itself from taxpayers, but it just doesn't stop there. This is why these events are such an important gravy train. This is why it's also linked to the Busan Expo, because that's a big gravy train. So about 8.7 billion additional dollars went into the region in terms of development projects, and this Jamboree was used as a justification. They won the bid in 2017, and 6 years later, here in 2023, we have the Jamboree. So that gives a lot of opportunities in between then to say, like, we need to build a regional airport. We need to build more of these highways. We need to build more. So it's a very much a construction infrastructure type of money grab. Maybe that area needs an airport. I never want to, disparage who needs an airport or what, but Korea does. South Korea is more of a smaller area, and it has had problems making its multitude of airports profitable. They're like very much money losing operations, and they are like these political cadre land grabs. If there were more planes that serviced it, oh my god, how cool would it be? It's almost like taking private jet travel, like, avoid all the traffic to go to place, but that's not there for us in Korea. So I don't know what they're doing with these regional airports, but anyway, and so that's another reason why it shows that, are they really building the airport for airplanes to fly, or are they really building the airport for the construction budget and then have like the construction budget, like let's say it's $3 billion, but maybe $1 billion only goes into the actual construction and $2 billion is like all over the place and maybe in Swiss bank accounts. Okay, so where is the current finger pointing and why has this risen to such a big level? I thought that this would just kind of resolve itself, and I was just kind of hesitant to talk about it because, I wanted the scouts to enjoy the time that they had there as well. But now this has gone up to the Board of Audit and Inspection, the BAI in Korea, and so that's like kind of like a big agency. It's sort of like, when the Congressional Budget Office or federal government here in the United States sends in people to kind of analyze and report on itself. Reporting on itself, that also has a little bit, some issues, and it also can be politically directed. But at the same time, it can start to uncover some skeletons in the closet. And so this BAI is going to look into it, and they're going to be analyzing it through, okay, who are the government agencies responsible? The fact that this camping trip had so many cooks in the kitchen, which to me indicates that there was like a lot of people in the government fighting with each other about who should get this $100 million, and then they sort of kind of came to some sort of compromise and peace under a previous administration in 2017 that disappeared now, because that's what it looks like, because the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family was supposed to eventually just take the helm, but then under President Yoon Suk-yeol, his campaign pledge that he fulfilled probably about 80%, he's dismantled the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family right before the Jamboree. There's also the Ministry of Interior and Safety. Remember that dude who was responsible for the Itaewon crowd crush or trying to, dance his way out of it? The Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism was also involved, the Korea Scout Association, and then, of course, the local government of North Jeolla Province. That's where this Haemangeum area was. These are all, this like city, federal, and the Scout Association. And also the Democratic Party of Korea, one of the representatives. So this is a very it's a political thing first, and then the kids and the Jamboree and the camping things second. When this thing all just kind of fell apart, and then I know you guys want me to talk about how one of these dudes who was an assembly member, a lawmaker, wanted to just pluck the BTS members who are serving military service and just have them like jump on stage to save the national reputation of Korea. Again, that reinforced the fact to me that this was politics first, satisfying the political cartel first, and who cares what happens to the kids? Who cares what happens to the kids? And that focus on why you should have BTS there, that thing that came out of your mouth, even though you said it was like, misinterpreted, it's not misinterpreted at all, because who is national reputation for? Is national reputation gonna help the kids? Is it gonna help their heat stroke? Is a national reputation for Korea increasing through BTS gonna help them, with their gastroenteritis from eating rotten eggs, or like not being able to go to the bathroom properly? No, that's for you. That's for you, the politician. That is not for them. And so that, again, and ironically, that was the dude that was like screaming the loudest during the hearings to get BTS an exemption. He was on the side of the BTS exemption, but again, proves again, you gotta kind of always look at them with a little bit of a half eye, because even though he was like on the side of BTS that moment, here he is right now willing to just sell them down the river and be like, hey, do a song and dance, and then maybe we'll be able to get the Busan Expo. That is the kind of logic chain that they're going on here with. Is just like, we have to solve this problem in order to get the Busan Expo. It's not, we have to solve the problem in order to make the scouts happy, in order to take care of children, other people's children from over 150 countries in the world. It's one thing to sacrifice your own Korean youth as a Korean political cartel, but then when you are applying the same thing to other people's kids from all around the world, that's not good. That is not good. That's what'll destroy your national reputation. Now, thank goodness, so they canceled the Scout event. And in a way, I think the scouts are supposed to kind of like adapt to the situation, and the government kind of like hightailed it to try to get them things. So it was just like slapped together, they were just like pulling stuff from all over the place where they could. And at least from the media portrayal, it showed that a lot of them did have a good time, and probably a lot of the local residents did embrace them with hospitality. Thank goodness that in a way that happened, so that they can kind of get out of Saemangeum, because not even, I would say probably 80% of Korean people have ever gone to Saemangeum. Why would you go? You're not going to go see a seawall, even though they're saying that they're gonna build this whole smart city and bring in tourism and all this kind of stuff. But most people don't go there. And it was probably for the scouts' benefit for them to go out and see Korea, because that, in a way, that gives them an opportunity to see the fun and cool side of Korea and do other types of tourism. And a lot of them enjoyed that. And then, of course, they all came together, and they were supposed to have the final big ceremony and the K-pop concert near Saemangeum in Jeolla province, but they actually just moved it to Seoul, which maybe in a way worked out, because they were able to go see Seoul and say they've been and experience what's fun about Korea. But you want to know what was really ick and cringe, don't you? To me, the biggest one, yes, were the toilets. Yeah, in American media, you probably didn't see the actual full images of the toilets. And in the Korean media, they didn't show you all of it either. They had it a little bit blurred out. But let's take a look at some of the conditions that these scouts had to go to the toilet. So, we're gonna go over the numbers. Remember, it's about 43,000 kids, so it's, every year I guess they budget about 45,000 people participating in this. The last Jamboree in West Virginia, of course, that was probably also political too, to, satisfy the man, Joe Manchin and his swing votes. But 45,000 participants, 2,700 toilets. 2,700 toilets. Semangam, 354 toilets for like the same amount of people. 354 toilets for 45,000 people? I would think you would need 354 toilets for 354 people. 45,000? Oh my God. And when it was in Japan in 2015, that World Scout Jamboree had 820 toilets and they cleaned it 70 times a day. So I guess they didn't have that many toilets, and they probably looked at like, oh well, Japan only had 820, we'll just do 354, maybe they can go to the bathroom outside. I don't know what they were thinking. I think they were probably thinking like, they're kids, they're intense, they're supposed to like live off the land. I think we need to send them there. I think we need to send all these decision makers who were involved in this disastrous Jambo dump to do their own week-long jamboree at the same site, under the same conditions, with the same facilities, and by the end of the week, if they haven't offed each other, decide who was responsible and how this won't happen again. But most likely, people who are responsible are probably like laughing in the background, pocketed money, gone. And then if you want to look at another piece of evidence, like how mismanaged this was, there's also reports that the contracts that the local government made to build facilities, some of them, the due date is in December. The Jamboree is in August. Why would you have a due date for a Jamboree facility to be completed by December? It's obviously a money grab. Another piece of little subtle evidence. So apparently the presidential office, they're desperate. President Yoon Suk-yeol was like, we're gonna fix this, we're gonna make it. And then of course he's like, the buck stops with me. To be sort of fair, this is kind of like not his problem, but then he is the guy that's supposed to fix it. So anyways, their effort would probably be like just trying to call whoever they can and just try to bring down the force of the presidential office to try to get something, get compliance from everywhere. And one of them was like to a lot of private companies, and apparently a lot of these employees are just like, why are we doing this? This is not our part of our job to be, or saving a camping trip and, providing accommodations or tours or whatnot. They're just like, what the heck is going on? And one of the companies was GS Engineering and Construction. So obviously to me, the presidential office can put a little bit more pressure on the companies that probably did get some contracts out of this. If you follow the money trail, I'm sure that company will probably come up. Not that they're a bad company, and they do good work, and they're responsible for so much of the Korean economy. But for when it gets trickled down, that order gets trickled down to the employee level, they don't know what's going on. And so they are not probably fully committed and fully compliant. That's the other part of this. When the government changed, when Yoon Suk-yeol came into office, it went from liberal to a conservative. And then usually, even if it went from a liberal to liberal, people change. So the people who made the deal in 2017 and probably said like, hey, let's focus on this, work really hard on this, and we're gonna divide up the pie like this. Those people seem like they just divided the pie, ate it, ran without even doing any of the cooking. And so now we're left with people in the government and in these positions. This wasn't their project. They didn't get any benefit out of it. And yeah, before you Pollyanna say like, well, shouldn't they just be committed to serving the public? And we are long past that, okay? If they're giving rotten eggs to kids, they're not serving the public. They're serving themselves. So they're probably like, what's in it for me? So they're probably not putting their full attention on this and then working for like their next thing to try to get some of their pie. And then before they leave office, which right now looks like it's the Busan Expo. So everyone's probably like trying to like focus on the Busan Expo and be like, I don't know, I don't want to take care of that. That stuff is like old and gone, and like I didn't get anything out of that. Like, let's go to the Busan Expo. And meanwhile, yeah, 350 bathrooms. And that's just scratching the surface of what went wrong with this jamboree. So how can this problem be avoided in the future? I think it really does depend on the public being a little bit more aware of how these international events are structured and where the incentives are. I'm not saying that automatically whatever event that happens, the people participating there kind of considered the second priority, but the incentive structure is there for them to be just there for the showpiece. For the main priority is to justify pulling in a huge taxpayer budget, much bigger than you would normally have to fight for. So it's kind of like an easy harvest. And then be able to not spend all of that harvest on the actual event and then pocket it or dole it out. There were a lot of instances that they were able to easily document, saying like a lot of these bureaucrats just went on these frivolous trips in the name of the jamboree, and that about like 80% of the budget just like kind of went to like administration. That's a lot of money. And they wanted to even increase and so like, and in the end, because of this emergency, Korea had to spend 200 million, I guess in a few days, to kind of hustle and jive and just like try to fix this problem. So in the end, that cost taxpayers, what did I say, about like $7,500 per person? So like $1,000, over $1,000 a day for these kids to go camping and to enjoy their jamboree. This and then the jamboree was even like, it was only like half of it. So that's a little shady. It's a lot shady. And I think the second part of it is that you have to follow the money, and the people have to follow the money, because they have to realize that this is kind of the way that the money flows. Otherwise, you're forever going to just point fingers at like, well, who installed the toilets, or who was responsible for the catering, or blah, blah. All those people at that level are not, it's not their fault, because the decisions at the top have constrained them, and they're fighting a battle. I'm sure some of those people in that catering kitchen knew the eggs were rotten and did not want to serve them, but suddenly they found out like half their budget got cut, and they don't know why, but they all know why, and they're wrestling with that. So I don't think you should like kind of blame the actual people like delivering the services. Yeah, maybe the people who operate the services and made the contracts, they may have some skin in the game or extra coins in their pocket from it. So in the end, I think people have to really kind of get out of maybe this Pollyanna mind. It's like, oh no, people wouldn't do that, or like how, like that wouldn't happen. All right, well, if you want to be Pollyanna sitting in a bleacher and then it collapses underneath you, Don't come crying to me if you can't braid your hair because you got 3 broken ribs. Should have just woken up now and be like, okay, next event, there has to be a lot more auditing going on, different incentive structure, and the first step of that is to kind of admit that this is sort of the way it works. And you have to decide, hey, do you want it to continue to work this way? Then, if you go to these events, this is always going to be a risk. All right, guys, what do you think? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And remember to always check out the coupon code for your LED masks. Get your summer beauty on. Well, we're almost, done with summer. Get ready for the fall. All right, guys. Bye-bye.